Alex Duran was slated to begin last semester at Union University. However, just days before classes were set to begin, he received a letter that rescinded his offer for admissions. According to the Charlotte Observer on July 23rd of 2020, the letter told Alex that because he wanted to live with his significant other in on-campus housing, not only was he denied that housing, but he was expelled from Union altogether. After the letter got significant attention on social media, Tim Ellsworth, the spokesman for Union University, reached out to McClatchy News on July 25th of 2020 to reaffirm that Union University expects its students, faculty, and staff to adhere to its moral and ethical belief systems. Unfortunately, Alex's experience as a gay student at a private religious institution is far from unique. Many people may not be shocked to learn that institutions like Union can discriminate against queer students in the United States. What is surprising, however, is that they can maintain federal funding while doing so. A recently granted exemption to Title IX, a law that was supposed to increase opportunities for students, has allowed these institutions to put in place faith-based rules that deny education to the very students that law was supposed to protect. So today, we will discuss the conditions that exist that allow for this legalized discrimination on campuses across the country. We'll discuss the effects that it has on students before finally coming to a couple of solutions to an epidemic that seeks to deny educational equality. There are two major conditions that exist that allow for this discrimination on campuses across the country: recent rule changes from the Department of Education and Title IX exemptions. First, according to Higher Ed on January 23rd of 2020, then Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos, in her time as the leader of the Department of Education, initiated new rule changes that made it easier for schools to discriminate against students based on their sexual preferences and gender identity. And these new rule changes not only made it easier for those schools to do that, but it opened the door for them to discriminate against other groups of students as well. She lauded the rule changes as benefits to First Amendment rights and religious liberties. However, according to Higher Ed on February 20th of 2020, members of the United States Senate argued that these new rule changes not only make it easier to discriminate against queer students, but against the rights of women. All a school has to do under these new guidelines is claim that they follow a specific ethical or moral belief system, and they can maintain federal funding while shutting their doors to students. These new rule changes were backed up by a memorandum that was signed in January of this year by the outgoing leaders of the Department of Education. According to Inside Higher Ed on January 12th of 2021, the Office of General Counsel for the Department of Education reaffirmed that LGBTQ+ students are not covered under anti-discrimination laws. These rule changes and the memoranda that backed them under the DeVos time as Secretary of Education are only one part of a system that harms queer students across the country. Title IX exemptions also exist and are an issue for LGBTQ+ students in the United States. They're an abhorrent part of the American educational system. According to Shane Windmeyer, the executive director of Campus Pride, an organization that is dedicated to helping LGBTQ+ students across the country, any school in the United States, be they public or private, can expel a student for being lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. These types of policies are harmful not only to their education, but to them as individual people. According to his organization, they update a list of schools that have obtained a Title IX exemption in the United States. And as of February 20th of 2021, 154 institutions have applied for or been granted a Title IX exemption in the United States, giving them a legal license to discriminate against the rights of LGBTQ+ students. And according to the Movement Advancement Project, in their last source updated on October of 2020, this affects nearly 8,000 LGBTQ+ students who currently reside on a campus of a school or institution that has a Title IX exemption. This number doesn't even include the thousands of others who are too scared to come out. Living a life that is not their own and in fear of being outed, these students are forced to shut themselves back into a closet, and it has devastating effects on their emotional health and their financial stability. The Richmond, Virginia magazine on April 8th of 2020 details how students can survive Liberty University. The fundamentalist Christian institution has a code of conduct known as the Liberty Way. Any deviation from this code results in discipline, which in the past has included conversion therapy. These types of codes create cultures of alienation and division that unfortunately breed thoughts of suicide. According to NPR on July 24th of 2020, a recent study from the Trevor Project finds that 40% of all LGBTQ plus youth in the United States have engaged in thoughts of suicide over the last year. The Hill furthers on September 4th of 2020 that number increases to half of all LGBTQ plus students who have engaged in self-harm over the same time period. These students are forced to be quiet. They're forced to live a life that is not their own, and it has devastating effects on their mental health, but also their financial stability. Dr. Harold Hay, the founding director of the Center for Faith and Inquiry, tells us on July 14th of 2020 that institutions like Union and Liberty advertise themselves as people-focused. But behind their message is a dark reality for LGBTQ plus students. They're faced with two options if they come out: pay exorbitant fees or leave and never finish their education. To put this into perspective, Brigham Young University in Utah costs just about $2,800 a semester because the Church of the Latter-day Saints covers other costs. If a student was queer and came out, they would be expelled from Brigham Young. And the nearest institution to them, the University of Utah, costs 4 times that price every semester. Being an LGBTQ plus student in the United States comes with a hefty price tag. But fortunately, there are some solutions that we can take on a national and personal level. First, we have to codify protections for LGBTQ plus students into federal law. According to Dr. Tisa Wenger, the Associate Professor of American Religious History at Yale University on August 4th of 2020, in the history of the United States, religion and the Bible have been used to justify both slavery and segregation. But as society changed, that bigotry became legally untenable. Today, we have to make sure that there are protections for LGBTQ plus students in the United States. Luckily, we have judicial precedent to do so. According to the Miami Herald on July 17th of 2020, in Bostock versus Clayton County, Georgia, the United States Supreme Court found that any discrimination against an individual for being homosexual or transgender is inextricably discrimination based on sex and is not allowed under federal law. Indeed, according to the Washington Post on January 21st of this year, President Biden signed an executive order that extended the Bostock protections to all people in all federal agencies in the United States. The problem? It doesn't once mention Title IX exemptions. So today, I'm asking that you contact Chairwoman Patty Murray and Ranking Member Richard Burr of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee to demand that they hold a hearing on the Equality Act and the Do No Harm Act. It will enhance educational equity. On a personal note, we have to educate ourselves and others about the horrors that students face every single day at these institutions. The Treasury Department's Data Lab, which is updated daily and tells us how much money different programs receive across the country, as of March 1st, 2021, tells us that last year the 154 institutions that got Title IX exemptions received $3.4 billion. We have to educate ourselves and others about these things. Join me in creating the Teach Not Preach campaign to educate ourselves about what's going on. Alex was lucky to find another school that would enroll him. But unless we act today, thousands of others will not be as lucky. Let's do this together.